At the risk of sounding like Alex Jones, there is a global elitist group of adults who want to fuck kids. Is that the best way to say it? I don't know if that's the best way to say it, Ryan. That's how I'm going to say it.
Intergalactic pedophiles?
Again, at the risk of sounding like Alex Jones. This is just a conspiracy, of course. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Rumble, this is the absolute truth. A UN report calls for legalizing... Hold on. I feel like we have to do it. We almost have to be Alex Jones when we say this. Give me a document, Cam. A UN report calls for legalizing sex between adults and children.
Now, this, of course, comes out of the Davis Group, BlackRock, Clearwater, globalist propaganda spew. These scumbags
I'm sure it's all in there, but Ryan, it's almost like we've been screaming about this for years, and like just out of nowhere, almost like the timing of it is like lining up with this transgenderism thing. Like almost like we've said in the past that the goal isn't to push transgenderism. The goal is ultimately to push into basically okaying the idea of pedophilia, or a minor attracted person, as they would call it.
I'm glad they picked like a very flattering photograph for this. It looks super not sketchy.
No, this is fine. Disturbing new report from the United Nations program on HIV/AIDS on AIDS. I think it's supposed to be.
Wait, what? AIDS. They snuck this in with an AIDS?
Well, it's just a report, right? Adds to growing concerns about global leaders pushing to normalize pedophilia. We've never said this before.
Not one time.
I think we've probably had YouTube videos taken down because of this. That's weird. World Health Organization, where are you at on this one? The report
funding the AIDS study with Dr. Fauci.
Unbelievable. The report, the 8 March Principles for Human Rights-Based Approach to Criminal Law Prescribing Conduct Associated with Sex, Reproduction, Drug Use, HIV, Homelessness, and Poverty, on the UNAIDS website offers legal guidance on issues related to sex, including involving children under the age of 18. Now, this report does seem to include a lot of things. It's not a very directed report. What do we got in there? We got human rights-based approach to criminal law, conduct associated with sex, reproduction, drug use, HIV, homelessness, and property. So it seems pretty wide ranging there.
It's a big net.
Without any discussion about the age of consent should be, the report suggests minors can consent to having sex with an adult.
Really?
Sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual, in fact, if not in law.
What the fuck does that even mean?
So basically, this says if a nation doesn't already have a law, then, they pretty much just sexual conduct is fine, because there's no national law for that nation about it. But it does go further than that. It also advises lawyers, judges, and law enforcement to consider, quote, the rights and capacity of the persons under 18 years of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct, and the right to be heard in matters concerning them when considering enforcement of laws. So basically, depending on who's ruling, you can throw the laws out.
Well, David, obviously, it makes sense that if we allow children to dictate what genitals they'll have, they'll be able to tell us that they love a 55-year-old man.
So, well, naturally. I mean, if you can be 2 years old and start transitioning because you
they will never hit puberty, so you don't got to worry about that. Don't you sound like a Nazi? Literally.
The report continues. Pursuant to their evolving capacities and progressive autonomy, persons under 18 years of age should participate in decisions affecting them with due regard to their age, maturity, and best interests, and with specific attention to non-discrimination guarantees.
David, I almost wonder if the internet has done such a good job of everybody thinking that they're unique and like are exceptions to the rules that Maturity, based on their maturity. You can't legislate maturity, can you?
No, because it's opinion based.
Yeah, that's why we had the 18 for this, 21 for this, 25 for this. Like,
right, you just set a deadline, or you just set it on average, and that's based on the averages. Some people are more mature than others.
Some don't mature at all.
How could you ever enforce that in a legal system?
Well, what if we have a 2-level judicial system, David? I'm sure you can legislate.
The legal system cannot be based on opinions of others. It has to be black and white.
Or children, or children.
In other words, live action.
Imagine your kid coming home. Like, literally, imagine your kid coming home. I have a girl. Like, if she were to come home and said that she was in love, or like, I would feel like I failed as a parent, man. You know, like, obviously the whole 18 thing, even if she was 18, you'd still be like kind of hot under the collar about it. But like,
you'd be like, your brain isn't fully developed yet.
Yeah, but then you're also like, well, I can't fucking tell you what to do because I know what I was doing at 18, right? And it's just like, this is what's making it so damn tricky about the world. And this, they talk about progressivism. It's so hard to like be a person when everything changes on the fucking drop of a hat, man. Not to mention, if some of this stuff is immoral and gross, this is like disgusting to even read that this is being discussed at the highest levels of global government. Now, granted, it's just tied in and lump summed into drug addiction and all these other things.
And AIDS, of course.
Yeah, AIDS and child pedophilia, because those are so close, which who knows? Maybe they are. Maybe there's a lot of bad things going on in places with AIDS and it rubs off on children, literally. If you know what I mean, like, who knows? But it is interesting this being discussed at the highest levels of government at a global level that we are now seeing. I don't know, David, would you say exceed towards furthering away from democracy and rule of laws?
Yeah, we've talked about this. The more you go towards global governments, the less individual rights you have.
Apparently, like children rights, especially.
It gets worse, Ryan. We're not even at the worst parts yet. The report calls for sex between adults and minors to be decriminalized so as long as the minor consents. Minors, of course, cannot truly consent to sex with an adult, something these so-called experts should know. However, the report portrays the matter as an issue of rights and acceptance. So we're talking about individual rights. They're talking about different kinds of rights.
It's just unbelievable that they skate over the fact. Why don't you explain why people under 18 can't obviously, because they're children. If they're we're grown adults, 50, 60, 40, 30, 20-year-olds are listening to what 14 and 15-year-old little girls and boys think. And that's what you're telling me. Could you imagine if kings and queens went to a 10-year-old 1,000 years ago and be like, how would you rule the kingdom? Could you imagine George Washington going down to the fucking elementary school and asking elementary school students how to start a nation? That's what we're talking about here. These people can't vote. Why? Because they're children.
But I'm sure that's coming.
Once again, this comes up with the whole LGBT thing. It's like it's never once been about what adults do. It's about how it comes off to the children. And now we're at children. We're going to put a C on the fucking flag soon.
Well, it's children. So, and obviously there's different, ranges of this. There's late teens, early teens, there's children, preteens, there's toddlers, and this doesn't get specific at all at any point. The forwarded to the report, I don't even know what that means. The forwarded to the report was written by a proudly gay lawyer, Edwin Cameron of South Africa, who argued that laws about sex can make people feel ostracized because of their sexual behavior.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, those poor pedophiles are getting ostracized, Ryan.
Yeah, they should. Some people in certain states want to put them down.
Florida, we talked about this. And actually what we said specifically was this is, and we're going to talk counterculture later this week, but that law seemed like it was counterculture,
just out of the blue. It was just out of the blue, David. Just coincidence. Fucking week ago. You know why? Because somebody in Florida seen this report, the forward of the report. What was in there? Oh, AIDS, blah, blah. Wait, what? We should fucking look into this. And they started. It's weird. The president in power likes to sniff kids' hairs, and I'm seeing this shortly after.
I'm sure that's all unrelated. Criminal law may thus impel hostility, exclusion, inequality, discrimination, and marginalizations of individuals and groups, sometimes to the point of violence. As results, human rights, democratic values, and social inclusiveness all suffer. He argued
What
that
about the rights of the
laws...
children? What about rights of children here?
children don't have rights, but also they can consent.
You fucking smoke a cigarette in the car in New York State, they're gonna pull you over and fine your whole family into fucking debt slavery. But
Yeah, but you can transition them, and they can consent to sex.
yeah, just
Yeah, I'm glad you're catching on, Ryan.
it's unbelievable. This is like the
He argued laws criminalizing sexual behavior codify discrimination. This is dog whistle, basically, against people of different sexual orientations. Cameron did not mention it, but somehow now argue that an adult who is sexually attracted to children is a sexual orientation, not a pedophile. That's the push they've been making, minor attracted person, right? We've been hearing this phrase for, I don't know, a little over a year, maybe 2 years. It hasn't been very long that they've been slowly trying to increment this into the LGBT community, which, by the way, a lot of people in that community don't like the idea of minor attracted persons being attached to them because they're fucking pedophiles and gross.
Yo, I want to know where this image is coming from. Did they like set this up as a photo shoot? Like, oh my.
Well, it probably came from this. Did you see this? Wait, you can't see this. I didn't share it yet. Hold on.
It's fucking unbelievable.
It probably came from.
I just told my mom today that they
this.
will mainline pedophilia, and here we go.
Did you see this? Losing track of sponsored children. An increasing share of migrant children could not be reached by HHS after a month.
Yeah, I wonder why. Are they making it legal so that they don't got to do real police work and track down known pedophiles that are raping the people that are supposed to come here for the betterment of them?
More than 80,000 children are missing from a U.S. government program. That's weird. I wonder where they are.
Let's give them more money. I guess they just need more money, Dave.
I'm sure they're not in child sex trafficking rings.
Did you check Epstein's Island?
Oh, they shut that down. They sold it, remember?
Yeah,
to totally not a pedophile, I bet.
Yeah, to totally not another pedophile. I'm sure it was the only island of its kind, David. Whatever. This crosses so many bridges. Do you remember when I made the joke about having pedophile rings in space, and then Bezos is building balloons, and now I got to see him?
Yeah, they do have. Yeah, and they did. Remember because you made that joke, and I said, "Oh, they are making big floating space rings that you can buy trips on." Ryan.
Yeah, nobody in the media has asked if there's another pedophile island ring out there,
us people in the pro-life movement have been saying for a while now how important it is to obviously care about children's lives, but their well-being, despite the left's attempts to make it think, well, you only care until they're born and then you don't. But that's obviously couldn't be further from the truth. But it says here, interestingly enough, the report calls for completely decriminalizing abortions, a move that would protect dangerous, untrained abortionists and quacks from prosecution. Abortion must be taken entirely out of the purview of criminal law, including having, aiding, assisting with, or providing an abortion. So here's the AIDS/pedophile thing now, including abortion also.
Wait, they want to get rid of abortion, or they want to get rid of laws regulating abortion?
They want abortion to be completely across the board legal.
Okay. This is funny because what's the reason for abortion we hear all the time is, what if my underage daughter gets sexually assaulted? We actually heard Joe Rogan take a passionate stand against this at the Babylon Bee founder, right? And then now we're seeing the paperwork and the forward to the actual document saying that they're going to decriminalize. They recommend decriminalizing pedophilia for minors. And then we're going to say that, yeah, we should make abortion all across the board, whatever. Yep. Just in case, your underage daughter gets raped by somebody, she's allowed to have an abortion.
No, interestingly enough.
Dude, how crazy is it? Talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. They're literally setting up the instances that to allow. Remember how we always says how many percentage of abortions are actually held by this you always hear about rape and incest, but how many are actually tied to rape and incest? And it's not what they report. And then you're going to usher in the laws that could allow that very slim statistical margin to expedite and be increased. It's fucking disgusting. This is this aggravates me.
Now, just so we're clear, Ryan, we're going to get into the actual, just a quick clip of what the actual law is. But I thought it was interesting because when I searched this on Google, here's This is one of the first things that comes up when you Google search this, just so we're clear. UN calls for decriminalizing sex with minors. Here's PolitiFact. False. Nope. If your time is short, here's the quick rundown, Ryan.
You mean if it's too long to understand in my busy life? It's weird how they alter language, David.
Here they say, right here, point blank, it did not call for the decriminalizing adults having sex with minors, nor does it mention it in the topic. Now, we didn't read the law yet, so we don't know. We were just going off an article, right? Mm-hmm, so for all we know, PolitiFact could be right.
But
here's the actual law. And turns out PolitiFact, maybe they're just wrong, Ryan. I don't want to just say they're lying. Maybe they're wrong. Here it is. Here's the actual report. Consensual sexual conduct, irrespective of the type of sexual activity, the sex/gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression of the people involved, or their marital status.
The fuck does that got to do with rape?
May not be criminalized in any circumstances. Consensual same sex, as well as consensual different sex sexual relations, or consensual sexual relations with or between trans, non-binary, and other gender diverse people, or outside marriage, whether premarital or extramarital, may therefore never be criminalized. So this is what happens, by the way, when the left gets involved with language. A thing that used to be simple men and women had sex is now this crazy giant spectrum of things that's all nonsense.
This is what legalese does, though, to language. This is like we speak common, like, right? We speak the common law, the common word, and they speak legalese. This is what they mean. Which is why I wonder why, if this is why they pushed it, is to just whatever.
So you could just jumble everything up, and then the average person's like, I don't understand this. I better check PolitiFact.
Yeah.
PolitiFact says it doesn't talk about sex with minors.
They've complicated language and simplified it at the same time. It's interesting.
With respect to the enforcement of criminal law, any prescribed minimum age of consent to sex must be applied in non-discriminatory manner. So, like, PolitiFact is saying, like, well, it doesn't say anything about consent to sex with kids. This is saying with respect to the enforcement of law, and presumably in the nation of that law, enforcement may not be linked to the sex or gender of the participants or age of consent to marriage. So technically, this still hasn't said you can fuck kids, basically.
But if your state allows you to fuck kids, you can't.
Moreover, sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. So again, still, if there's laws in the books, you have to follow the laws. In this context, the enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights or capacities of persons under 18 years of age to make the decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. Pursuant to their evolving capacities and progressive autonomy, persons under 18 years of age should participate in decisions affecting them with due regard to their age, maturity, and best interest, and with specific attention to non-discrimination guarantees. Basically, that's saying if you're under 18, it's up to you.
Yeah, and it's also, by extension, removing your right as a parent from saying what your kid can and can't do in the court of law.
Now, right,
and if we set this precedent, imagine what they're going to do with the education system.
I have an interesting last point to make about this before we move on. Do you remember Milo Yiannopoulos?
Yeah.
Do you remember why he was removed from the internet? The big controversy?
I believe, to the effect, I'm paraphrasing YouTube, is that he said he deserved to get raped by a gay guy or something, and it turned him gay, or
sort of. So what he said was he was a lot of gay people, their first sexual experience with another man before they maybe even know they're gay. Who knows? Tends to be with older men. And what he was saying was, he was underage at the time he first had sex with a man. The man was overage, and he basically said, it didn't really have any negative effects on me, whatever. But the media spun it as Milo Yiannopoulos is pushing pedophilia, which of course was not remotely what he was saying.
It's weird when you explain your story and experience what they can take out of it.
And he was silenced, shut down, censored. He was one of the early censorships on Twitter. He was after Alex Jones, if I'm not mistaken, but he was certainly one of the firsts that I recall, one of the first big names to get deplatformed. And here we are. Here we are all these years later. He's still deplatformed, and now the UN is pushing pedophilia when he was never even talking about pedophilia in the first place. And it is important to distinguish too. And I'm not saying this is okay or whatever, but it is a lot different when you're talking about Milo talking about being, 16 years old, and the man was 19 years old or whatever the case may be. That's a lot different than 30, 40-year-olds fucking kids. Let's just so we're clear. It's not all black and white, one fine line. But here we are. This doesn't mention specific ages or anything. It just says under 18.
Yeah, David, this is always what, when we were growing up, it was called the birds and the bees, right? And the reason is because we don't understand, you guys ever think about that? We're just still monkeys walking around sniffing each other's asses, we're no different. Well, we're no different than dogs, man. We just think that we got this head. I know it's like a Rogan point, but it's true. You know what I mean? The point of it being called the birds and the bees is we don't understand, right? Like, we don't understand, I know how sex works. But we don't, the chemicals. It might be the time, the place, the people you're with, the way you're feeling. There's so many things when it comes to attraction and mating and finding a mate and all these things that it's you almost can't explain it, which is why they have to do studies on marriage and all these things, is because we're curious about how to do this thing right. And and the point is it's too complicated of a thing. And they fucking know that, which is why they targeted the trans movement. I truly believe that this was a co-opted movement and it was used to push this stuff. Not saying that there's not trans people and that they don't feel it, but
I feel like trans people in general.
Name another movement that blew up like this,
right?
Ever.
I think gay, lesbian, and bi kind of was the movement. Really, really, mostly. And initially, gay people was the biggest movement. Lesbians kind of tacked on. Well, we can be gay too. We're just women. It's all right, whatever. Come aboard. And it's
we're bi, and it's control and what it does to women,
yeah.
And that's a whole nother argument about the rise of lesbians in our culture.
Sure, and it's we're bi, and it's all right, you're basically gay. Come on, and it's we pretend we're something else that we're not, and it's fuck
those T's. Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, they complicate everything for a reason. The real thing is they're attacking the nuclear family, which is the cradle of civilization and the greatest shit ever. So we know that. They know that. Yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. Dave Ryan, December 1773. Catch us Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. I will be there along with David. And yeah, thanks everybody. As always, David, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ryan. Tomorrow we're going to talk social credit scores. That's conspiracy also, just like pedophiles.
Yeah, I wonder what mine is.